السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Got it. Is this working? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am technically Athari. Ramadan Mubarak. So I'm just testing out the setup, obviously. Just, let me see here. This is not going to be a very long stream, obviously. Okay, camera's good. That's good. I just want to make sure everything is working because I just set up my computer. I moved recently, so that's why there are boxes in the background. I'm exceptionally tired. I'm also in a bit of pain because I tore my ACL moving stuff. I tend to forget that I'm not as young as I used to be. But, you know, what can you do? Yes, I guess it's a nice fan. I don't know. I hardly use it. It's very cold outside. Yeah, Jazakallah. I mean, I'm walking. I walk on a cane a little bit when it gets too bad, but yeah. I'm doing to work tomorrow, so I have to get up and be about. That said, nothing has really been going on. I hope everyone's doing well. Family's doing well. The little one is speaking a lot and learning things every day. She's very talkative and energetic like I was when I was young, which is now I'm seeing in retrospect. My parents were usually upset with me. It would probably necessitate surgery eventually, but in the meantime, I'm going to just take medicine. I don't, to be quite honest with you, I hate this leg. It's my right leg. I've already broken it twice. My patella broke in half at one point. I broke part of my femur, and now it's the ACL. It's like this leg is just giving out constantly. So I'm sincerely contemplating the possibility of just removing it in the next 10 years or so, and getting an artificial limb because it is very troublesome. Yeah, I don't mind being a cyborg. I'm perfectly fine with that, as long as I can function. So, yeah, that's that. Anything else happening? Not really. Ramadan's been kind of hectic, alhamdulillah, because I've been moving during this process during Ramadan, and it hasn't been easy. And of course, with the injury and everything, it hasn't been easy. That's about it. Life is just life. A lot of things I'm reading and thinking about now. Just trying to see where things go. Really kind of looking into AI and a lot of other things, and it's accelerating. A lot of things are accelerating. It's such a pace that I don't even think younger people can keep up. So it's just I've been paying attention to a lot of technological advances and medical advances in the past few years. I haven't been really focusing on politics or anything. I mean, I'm aware of them, of what's been going on, especially here in the United States, and also the oppression that's going on in the Muslim world, obviously. But I am, yeah, I'm trying to see what's happening next. And it's not easy for me to predict because usually change as quickly as they have in the last decade. To be quite honest with you, usually I'll predict something that happens based on the data that we have, and it's relatively close. But this time it's up in the air. Um, I have optimism, but also pessimism. I don't know if you can have both at the same time relate to what those advances will be, but it does appear that we are moving in a certain direction that is going to, how should I put this, change how humanity perceives itself. It's probably the internet. Um, I would say that in the next 10 years or more, obviously, I think human beings are going to start redefining what it means to be human in a very real and very, impactful way. So there's a bit of fear in that, but at the same time, there's some excitement with respect to what sort of boundaries we're willing to cross and we're going to be able to cross. Um, well, I think humans are adapting, but I think it's more about, I use this word loosely, it's a sort of evolution in the sense of artificial evolution. I have been following biotech and also the recent Neuralink developments. That is a little concerning, but at the same time, I foresee that that could advance our species a great deal. Whether for the for the best or not is obviously up to us, because values are integrated with technology and science. But generally speaking, I feel like humans are moving in a direction of good intentions, but at the same time, things can disrupt, right? Uh, Assalamu alaikum. I do believe that the Apple Vision Pro, I mean, the technology was around for a while, let's be frank. It's still not viable, but I do think that is the step that a lot of these corporations are moving into, is that, so when we have this idea of a sci-fi, I don't know if a lot of you watch sci-fi. I watch sci-fi a lot. So you have like a lot of high science fiction, and you have a lot of like, you have the Star Wars, and you have the you have like, the Dunes and stuff like this, right? Okay, that's all like high science fiction, all right. But then you have like the dystopian sort of cyberpunk kind of viewpoints, like the Blade Runners and stuff like that. We're moving more towards the Blade Runner reality than we are the other ones. That's what I'm trying to say, is that, so what I am looking at here is with the result, like the metaverse has kind of been put a little bit on hold for now because I don't think the technology is there yet, but it's definitely still the intention, is the digital realm, the digital reality, by immersing people in digital reality and the augmentation, the technological augmentation of the human mind and body, I think is definitely moving in that direction. So I do feel like uh, there is a movement among a lot of corporations and thinkers and stuff to sort of advance human beings beyond current limitations. Obviously, it's called transhumanism, but I think that is the primary goal right now. Not so much like interstellar travel and stuff like this. That's just, aliens and things. Well, though that may come, but whatever. The point is that we are moving. We, instead of trying to advance beyond the world, what they're trying to do is develop technology and human beings to a point where the limitations that we currently have no longer exist. Um, Assalamu alaikum. Yes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us and grant us the night of power. I don't usually come online. I'm just, like I said, briefly on here because I wanted to see if the setup works. I just set up my computer, so some of my thoughts are just coming out right now because I really don't talk to people much these days. I've been enjoying my solitude, my self-imposed solitude. But it's nice to communicate sometimes, to get my ideas out of my head. But I feel like the world is extremely confused right now, with not respect to reality, but with respect to who they are and what humanity is and what it means to be and where to be. And I think that that's going to come to a head eventually, and there's going to be either conflict or there's going to be a massive spiritual internal revolution that causes us to get out of this rut that we're currently in. But it is a period of transition. And I've noted this before in several streams before. We are in a period of transition in the current age. But it's going by faster than usual, because usually periods of transition in the past, especially the medieval era, et cetera, and back in antiquity, took like whole generations, like 100 years. But unfortunately, nowadays, human beings, we haven't advanced enough, our brains haven't advanced enough to accept the accelerated rate of transition. So now these transitionary periods are happening within decades, like 1 decade. And it's become quite impossible for many people, I think, to grasp fully or comprehend. And I think that's why you also see a dumbing down of society in terms of intellect, in terms of comprehension, in terms of reading, because it is so overwhelming that a lot of people just feel the need to retreat. So it's like a willful ignorance has been imposed for the sake of relieving themselves of their own anxieties. Does that make sense? I hope. So something to pray about. Where are the Muslims going to be in the next few years? Are we ready? The thing is, I'm quite a pessimist in this respect. I think Muslims aren't ready. I don't think that a lot of us, I think we are so focused on things, certain things that are happening right now, which everyone has a right to be, right? But our reaction to them and our solutions to them are so outdated, and there is an inability within the Ummah to really kind of predict or even just like facilitate the community towards those changes or towards properly adapting to those changes. And I feel like we are losing ground very quickly. Again, there are some Muslims who are trying to deal with these things right now, but they're very few and far between. And too much of our community is still centered on problems and solutions that don't work, and problems that will not go away just because they keep hitting them with the same hammer. I know it sounds very vague, but it's like the whole thing with the Palestine issue, and I'm not going to go deep into this, but it's just the same thing over and over again every year. Palestine is getting worse because the Western world and many individuals in Israel and many individuals are attempting to commit genocide, but at the same time, the Muslims are not responding with any solutions that would actually solve anything. It's just a constant repetition of protest and boycotts that just don't really, they affect to a certain degree, but they don't change anything. So like, the only person that I've really noted that's kind of working on towards kind of understanding the future is Ziauddin Sarder, who's not exactly orthodox by any means, but he's a good philosopher. Yeah, there's resilience, but resilience in the wrong direction can oftentimes create burnout or, at the very least, destroy resources that are necessary in order to properly respond to future issues and realities that are going to be occurring very quickly. Um, I do believe, and I know I'm sorry that sounds upsetting, but I mean, sincerely speaking, I do believe that at a larger level, a lot of these current initiatives are very much useless. I mean, obviously, you can't say that they're useless in the sense that, like, oh, you're not doing any good. Well, yes, you're doing good, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards your intention, but overall speaking, like, the outcome is not there. It won't be there. Like, what is expected, the outcome that I expect is that things will continue as they are regardless, unfortunately. And that's what we're already actually witnessing. And that's why a lot of times, even though I look on Facebook and I see people like, oh, like the boycotts are doing so much, and I'm just like, not really. I don't say anything because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I'm just like, no. In the next year, you're going to look back and it's going to be the same thing. It's not going to change anything. Do what you wish, do what you want, do what you think is best. Move your hand in the right direction for the sake of peace and justice. Good. But don't delude yourself into believing that things are going to change. That's what well, there's a lot of issues, and one of the main issues is that a lot of these Muslim countries simply aren't actually wanting to help Palestine for reasons, political, economic. There's also this strong belief within certain segments of the Muslim population that try to honor this idea of like Pyrrhic victories. And what I mean to say is, like, there's this, and I spoke to somebody about this before, and it was quite it was quite contentious because a lot of people didn't like what I said, but I this is what I sincerely believe. So one time, and I was at a talk a couple months back in California, and I actually discussed this with a lot of people. And I said, one of the things that makes me most upset is when we have a lot of Muslims unintentionally, they don't know, I don't think they know that this is a problem, but sort of like, the picture of the child throwing stones at a tank, right? We've seen it all over the place. And we go, oh, mashallah, like this is a martyr, and this is bravery, etc. And I look at that picture a very different way. I look at that picture as disturbing that a child would have to do this, that is desperate enough to do this. And for me, that picture is indicative of the weakness of the Muslim world. It's not indicative of heroism. It's indicative of our inability to help that child. Because I can't imagine my own child feeling forced to have to throw a rock at a tank. Right. And I don't like it when Muslims try to build that picture up as like, mashallah, this is amazing. And I'm like, no, that's not how you should be looking at that picture. And I feel like there is a certain subculture within the Muslim world that incentivizes this sort of behavior and mentality, which is also going towards why certain countries don't help them, because it's seen as a good thing that they are fighting like that. And I don't see that as a good thing. I think it's disgusting. And I don't think a lot of Muslims see it that way. I'm not saying they're doing it intentionally. I'm just saying, like, that's just my perspective. And I think that by honoring those sort of images and sort of like trying to build those images up, we are kind of placing a mentality in ourselves that we don't have to do more than what we're already doing. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And I feel like there are that's why a lot of Muslims, they send money over It's like, well, we have to help them to keep fighting. They have to fight for their land. And the reason I notice this too is because I also have this opinion that if they were able to leave, that they should leave and make hijrah and then come back and fight when they're strong enough, because that's the sunnah. But that's a very unpopular opinion. And a lot of Muslims often get mad at me and they say, well, they should fight for their land in Palestine, and the earth below their feet is more important than the blood of these children. And I don't have that opinion. I just don't. I'm sorry, I can't. I just don't. And I don't think the Prophet ﷺ would be okay with this. I don't speak on his behalf. I just believe that it's just not something that we should encourage. Yeah, it is easy for us to talk, but that's the problem, is that we're all talking. It's not just the people supporting the Palestinians. Everyone's talking. And the thing is, when you're there, obviously you have to make certain choices. And if you're forced to make those choices, then obviously we have to understand that. My point is that I'm talking about the other people who are talking, who are telling me that I have to do certain things to help the Palestinians. But then at the same time, I'm looking at them going, you're only perpetuating the same cycle. And then they tell me, oh, you can, that's something that you can say because, you're just 1,000 years, you're 1,000, I'm not saying you, but saying that you're 1,000 miles away talking. Well, it's like, so are you. And I'm telling you to shut up. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. I don't think so. I'm sure there's a lot of people who want to leave. I'm sure that there's a lot more people who would prefer to leave than have their entire family slaughtered. I hesitate to suggest otherwise. I think that's kind of that's a very that's an unhealthy mentality to have if you're okay with your kids being killed just because they're on that land. I think that's very unhealthy. I mean, again, look at the son of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mecca is far more important than Palestine. Mecca and Medina, the Kaaba. Although there is disagreement regarding the scholars which place is holier, whether it's the Kaaba or it's the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina. The Maliki madhab tends to take the latter opinion. But what I'm trying to say is, like, during that time, his people were being slaughtered and punished and tortured, and yet he decided to leave and come back. So why is it that we don't encourage the same mentality amongst the Palestinians? Again, I'm not saying that they can leave. I'm just saying that I don't think it's healthy to encourage something opposite of what the Prophet ﷺ would do, because in the event, even when people of lesser status, right, like slaves, like, he was more concerned about their lives than he was about that place. Does that make sense? So that's why I'm trying to say that I don't think the mentality that's within a lot of Muslim societies, the subculture of like resistance in the face of impossible odds, is necessarily a good one, because the Prophet ﷺ did not have that mentality. That's what I'm trying to say. I respect their agency, but I do not respect self-sacrifice if there is an option to not do that. Unfortunately, there is no option at this point, but I blame the Muslim society surrounding Palestine for not allowing that option to exist. That's where my main issue is. Yes, offer asylum. So I truly believe with my heart that the life of one Palestinian child is worth more than all of Palestine as a land. I truly believe that. And that's what I believe. So there won't be total peace, but at least they won't be in a basket being bombed to death. At the very least, they can start their lives over and perhaps go into a diaspora and build up their strength and power till one day we have the capabilities of returning there and taking it back accordingly. But as of right now, it's just a slaughterhouse. I am not a defeatist by nature. I just believe in strategic retreat. I believe it is better to fight another day than not to fight at all. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think Muslim societies around are allowing that option. But let's not continue. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for the people there in Palestine and find them a way out. What all of us are suffering is nothing in comparison. Yes, the brother has moved. Yep. In lighter news, I don't want to be this downer as I usually am, but yeah, I'm starting to what is it? So I'm reading something. Okay. I'm still doing programming and stuff. Trying to use that as a backup just in case, but it's always good to know. And yeah, just doing a lot of reading. I'm just really just kind of trying to. I encourage everyone to sort of remove themselves from social media. Now, I do use X or Twitter, whatever you call it, to see news because unfortunately that's where all the news is now for some reason. Well, I know the reason, but still. But I haven't actually been engaging on social media. So I encourage that for everyone because I think it is necessary for all of us to be grounded in physical reality, because now the digital reality is becoming so toxic and just it is almost incomprehensible what's actually going on in the world because of how things are filtered. And I have had much more clarity, and I guess you could say my less anxiety as a result of leaving all these things behind. So I do still recommend that you all fast from these sort of technologies for some time. I mean, I'm not saying not to use them entirely, but what I'm trying to say is I use them in such a way where they are just tools and not necessarily the main way in which you engage with people. Because the reality is that the way that social media has, and I have actually a lecture about that. I don't know if you've seen it. It was on when I was in California. I gotta show it to you guys. I have it still? I believe I do. Let's go to Discord.